Yeah.
I don't know what happened there. We were having some technical difficulties. Sorry, guys. They're all like, we can hear you now. We can see you now. Thank you guys for being here. I'm here with our very special guest, the CEO of Halo Labs, Kiran Sidhu. I don't know why there was that huge delay there. So sorry.
Yeah.
And why don't we start from the beginning? Kiran, where are you
Well,
right
no,
now?
I'm actually in Mendocino at a distributor, one of our partner distributors, where we assemble product for distribution to dispensaries. And if I pop my screen around, if you look around, you will see lots of product, about 70,000 individual units
Wow.
of different stuff. Last time I opened up this box, which was the dad's tabs, which is probably one of the reasons we're talking now. Oh, and see, it's sealed, so I can't really get into it. And then we store the product, as I think I showed you before, in a freezer. Because again, it's a natural product, no preservatives. So you store your product here to make sure it has a fresher shelf life.
So by keeping it in the freezer, it's gonna keep it there longer. Like what's
That's right. That's really good live resin there. I'll flip it around now so you can see me. Give me a second. And technology does work, I think.
how long can that live resin live in that environment?
I think I dare want to suggest that I'd say less than six months or less. If it isn't there, in Nevada, they actually make you put expiry dates on stuff. I don't know if they do that in Canada, but in California and Oregon, they don't. But you don't want to get a reputation in the market of having that product, right?
Absolutely, of course not.
Correct. So, and then the other stuff is the individual packaging and the way it's packaged, just to let people see, is in little pucks like this, is the way they do it in America, right? Or at least in California. And we open them up.
Can you put that a little closer to the camera so we can see it?
Sure. So this is a individual puck.
Very
live
nice.
resin, cannabis concentrate. And then if I pop this open real quick, give me 1 second, you'll see the product in here, which is a gram of live resin in a childproof pack.
And what does that retail for, or what do you guys sell those for?
We sell them for about, I would say, $14 before cultivation tax. And I would say it's out the door at about 35 is what I saw when I was at a dispensary in LA.
So there's some pretty good profit margins there.
There's good profit margins in California, for sure better than Oregon. Nevada also has good profit margins, but doesn't have the same velocity, hence the emphasis on California.
Well, yeah, you guys have such a large population there. I guess.
Correct.
Would California be the largest state as far as population in America?
I believe so, and I think if it was a country, it would be the 5th or 6th largest country in the world.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. That's pretty incredible. Now, we got 63 people watching.
Oh, wow.
Why would an investor want to buy Halo Labs? That's what they want to know.
Because we actually, as you see here, drive volume. We actually make sales, make some profits, and we actually run a real business. And what I'm finding in the cannabis space is a lot of people have aspirational business, right? Not a lot of people can say, look, I'm number 2 consistently in the state of Oregon. I've just entered California. Here's our lineup. It's an incredible lineup. And we have the dab tabs, which are, safe and clean vaporization platform that we lead with. We're already probably in 75 or 80 dispensaries, and we're just gearing up. And so there are another 400 to go. So, there's substantial revenue growth in California here, and that's why I'm here right now.
And what do you think about the Safe Banking Act? I'd love to know your opinion. Is that a huge thing?
I think it's, the first thing I thought to myself is, why is this a big deal? Because we have banking with state institutions in California and in Oregon. So with North Bay Credit Union here in California down the street, and with MAPS Credit Union in Oregon. In Nevada, there isn't banking. But we've gotten used to the hassle of dealing with cash, moving people around. And the Safe Banking Act will help everything in the sense that now we don't have all this cost of moving cash around. And then I always see on the transportation Slack channel, oh, this was short $10, this was short $20. You're not going to see any of that. And then people at dispensaries will be able to use credit cards, right? And then you can actually make international wires.
That's great. That's great.
Yes, I think those are really great things that are, I think would be amazing. And I think that it has a real good shot at passing the Senate. And Trump has always said that if it's brought to his desk, he'll sign it.
Well, they voted 321 to 103 yesterday to pass the House in the historic vote. Now they need to pass the Senate. But the issue that what I've heard, I don't know if you know more about this than I do, but apparently there's a lot of Republicans in the Senate, and the Republicans actually voted in nay of the Safe Banking Act passing. Overall, the ones that were voting at the House actually voted in nay. So they're going to have to do some convincing.
Yeah. So that's a big issue. And now it goes to the Senate, and there's this whole process called reconciliation and everything. But it's a good sign. I mean, you got a president who's for it. I mean, supposedly he cut that deal with the 2 Colorado senators last year to get the tax bill passed, right? And then you have you have the House, which is for it. Yeah, the Senate, it's tough. And also the Senate, I think it's not substantially Republican, but solidly Republican. So yeah, it's great, but we have banking now, but it is a hassle and it is a cost, right? So that's the reality of the situation.
So we got about 80 people now watching live, and awesome. A lot of them are saying they're going to buy Halo. A lot of them are saying they love Halo. So this is good. I'm excited. This is good.
Let me show you something cool, by the way. So a lot of people say, well,
Please.
How do you sell in California? How are you going to get into dispensaries? So what we do is we have a box like this, and it's a sample box, and we put our brands in it, and then we give it to dispensaries. They try it, and they order, right?
Beautiful.
The sales guy who goes to a dispensary, you're going to get into accounts. If your product is good, we've been doing it for as long as we've been doing it. So yeah,
I love it. I love it.
No, this is sort of brass tacks. This is Halo, because Halo isn't about bright, shiny objects, beautiful facilities, big machines. As a Halo, we always say we have 2 rules: big machines, big problems; little machines, little problems is rule number 1. And the second rule is whatever I'm using today, machinery-wise, I probably would never use tomorrow. In about a year and a half, because the business is evolving, right?
Absolutely.
Also, you can say hi to Jerry, who actually runs this facility. Your listeners, Jerry, come on in. This is Jerry.
Hey, Jerry, how you doing?
Jerry,
how are you?
Jerry
Very
has
well.
Like a complete manufacturing background. He's managed plants in China.
Wow.
He's managed plants. He worked at Mead before.
Yeah.
Tijuana. In Tijuana, he ran a plant. And he's been with us. He ran our Medford plant. And when we've decided, we've been talking about it in press releases, we're establishing a Northern California base. We brought Jerry because he's our ace, because he's been with us for so long. And how many years of manufacturing experience do you have?
30.
30 years,
wow.
Right? But he's been with us in the marijuana business now for 3 to 4 years, right? We don't lose people, which is good.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a very good sign that you're keeping your people happy is very important. Keeping shareholders happy is very important. And
that's all I do. That's what I focus on, at least 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 to 7 days a week. I try to take Sundays off.
Kiran, I love the fact that you're very transparent. And for the 80 people that are watching here, I know that they've got lots of questions and they want to know more.
Sure.
Let's get into your history, okay? In the beginning, you were invested in Namaste, correct?
No. The first company I ever invested in was Golden Leaf Holdings.
Oh, wow.
That's how I came into this industry. Friends and I led a seed round in Golden Leaf Holding, where there were 2 young guys, let's call them, juvenile. younger guys who came up with the concept of CO2 extraction using an Eden Labs machine. It was the first time we heard it. And then we took that company public, which was, I think, the first plant-touching U.S. company, that or Nutritional High, to go public on the Canadian Stock Exchange.
Oh, wow.
And when we started this company, we left Golden Leaf because they decided to become an MSO and do other things. And we wanted to stay in cannabis oils and concentrates. Now, the Namaste story is an interesting story. While Golden was running, I wasn't part of the management team, but I was an investor, and my friends were on the management team that had invested with me. And I was running a company called Everyone Does It in England, which was a large peripherals company that makes, all the smoking gear. And that company we wanted to sell. And Namaste made us an offer. They had just gone public at around 15 to 20 cents, somewhere between 10 and 20 cents a share. And we vended our company into Namaste. And then myself and Philip joined the board of Namaste. And I think I was there for about a year and a half, 2 years.
Wow. That's an interesting story. And then you then started Halo Labs. And how long have you been with Halo Labs now?
Halo Labs is April 2015. When I was at Namaste, I was just a non-executive director and head of the audit committee. So Halo Labs, I've been full on since we founded April 2015, nothing else.
And if you could rewind 10 years ago, did you ever foresee a day that legalization would happen in America?
Well, this is an interesting story. My grandfather, my mother's father, was an Indian doctor who during World War II published a bunch of green books, actually, kind of funny, about the medical efficacy of marijuana, which he presented to the New York Academy of Sciences. And when I went online, I believe it was online, where my uncle sent me an article that showed me that, he was getting press for that. And he actually was, I think, a member of the New York Academy of Sciences. And then my mom worked in Dr. Barbara Brown's lab in the 60s. She was making LSD as part of the military trials. My mom was a lab tech. And so my family has always been around these sorts of things, medical marijuana, be it, when they were trying to use hallucinogenics for, psychological purposes and just onward. So my uncles always said that being in the marijuana business, my mother's brothers always said it was in your blood. It was just something naturally you would do. And to me, I always thought of it as something medical due to my grandfather, right? And so, to me, there was never a stigma with it or anything that was different or taboo about it growing up. It's definitely a passion for me.
That's great. I have a question here from Lorenzo from the audience saying, hi, Kiran Sidhu. Are you in any cannabis shops in the Bay Area or Los Angeles? You can tell us. I'm in Los Angeles, and I would love to try some of the Halo product.
Yeah, I know that we're in Urban Leaf. I know that just right now, my guys told me that there's a dispensary downtown that has it. I think MedMen doesn't right now carry the dab tabs down there. But yeah, those are two dispensaries. In the Bay Area, actually, we do a lot of white labeling, and I'm actually meeting some guys from the Green Door and some other places next week. But for the Bay Area, we just made our first delivery to our distributor, Nabis, Nabis. So products will be starting to flow into dispensaries, I think, probably within the next 2 weeks.
Great.
Oh, and of course, the big one is Ease. Our products are in Ease. So if you have access to Ease, and Lorenzo, you're in California, you can order the dab tabs on Ease.
Very good. Very good. And what is your, Lorenzo says, wow, Green Door. Yep, Green Door.
I'm meeting with the guy on Tuesday, I think.
You're always mentioning different names, and let's talk a little bit about your deal with Kaliba. Any new news with Kaliba?
Well, I'll show you something that was really cool. We're right now putting together, it was right here. Where was it? Here. Let me show it to you here. So I'll bring it here. So we were just putting together cart samples for that, right? Because they want a custom blend. and this is really cool because this is both a little distillate, but a lot of live resin. So remember that stuff I showed you?
Yep.
Yeah, that's this stuff blended in with distillate. And so
Very
there are
good.
multiple samples here that they gave me, and they said, listen, why don't you try one, which I will do after this interview, just to see how this tastes, because they wanted something with a little bit deeper flavor.
And those are not bitter?
No, they
No?
taste sweet. They taste
Sweet.
completely sweet. I mean, you know, and that's something that's going to be really cool about Canada, because now you guys are starting with the edibles. You're going to start with tinctures, which you've already had. You have the pills, but inevitably you will get to where we're at. And I was speaking to the CEO of Valens Grow Works, and he said that he's gotten all the technology approved to be able to do concentrates in Canada. And he said he's the first one. And so that live resin I showed you, to me personally, is what I smoke, right? Because I'm all about, you know, not distillation personally, and not the flower because it has so much other gunk with it. I'm all about, you know, the live resins and the concentrates.
That's great. And any new news that you can talk to us about with Halo Labs? Anything going on? You're traveling all the time. Busiest guy in the business.
Well, the one thing that I want to assure all shareholders and people about is that we're really close to that Buffalo closing.
Very good.
Right? We said 2 to 3 weeks. I was just on with the lawyers now. It's just very complicated for a Canadian cannabis company with U.S. operations, because remember, we're the first with U.S. operations, because it's Canopy, Apria, Supreme, who are there right now, that is making this sort of acquisition. And so that'll be done. And I can't, a lot of people say to me, and this may sound really strange to some people, but a lot of people say to me, California's great, but what else is sort of a jewel in your mind? And I say to them, Africa is a jewel. As long as you do it systematically and pedantically, and we have a great sort of learning curve thanks to, thanks to Supreme and Metagrow. And so they've at least blazed the path there, that we can follow now and know how to make money. And hopefully next year we're going to be making money in Africa.
Wow. What about that? Like, it seems to me that the companies that are reaching for international exposure are the Canadian ones, more so than the American ones, because the American ones don't really have to, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, yes and no. The American ones, we have enough to do in the states we serve, especially California. If you ask me, about Oregon, it's small and it's manageable. California is the largest cannabis market on the earth, and you got to be careful about how you tackle it. So let's say we're in 50 dispensaries now, plus E's. We do some white label for Kaliba. Does that mean I can do white label for other people? Probably, I got to ramp it up systematically because the numbers here are staggering. I'll give you a perspective. Some Bedrocan, the CEO of Bedrocan, not the Bedrocan that was bought. Yeah, it is, I think, but it's a Dutch company now. Told me that last year he imported 100 liters of distillate into Germany. To put it in perspective, our target in our small facility in Cathedral Cities here is 100 liters a week.
Wow.
So that's why these markets are large. But the reason, part of the reason I like a place like Africa is that if you're going to plan a European strategy and a strategy for export, you might as well do it from a low cost base and a politically stable environment. Why would you want to, grow biomass for extraction in Spain? That to me doesn't make sense. And I lived in Spain for, I think, about 7 to 8 years, right? So it doesn't make sense given the taxes, the costs versus a place like Africa. That's sort of my thesis there and the company's thesis there.
And what do you think about the way things are happening right now with Bruce Linton? You hear he's getting involved with a lot of MSOs. He's making investments. Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I think Bruce Linton is a trailblazer in the industry. And, there was no sort of fall from grace. I mean, there probably, what there was all, so that's an interesting thing, is that in this industry, making money was not a thought until the market fell for a lot of people.
Correct.
Come April,
Correct.
right? And now I was on the phone this morning with a prominent MSO CEO who I know fairly well. We had a call this morning for half an hour. And while we were talking, he says that, it's the signs, the signs are there now where there's going to be a big shakeout. He says people are calling him, looking for exits. And there isn't as much money to be as frivolous with as people were in the past. And, but part of it, we were supposed to do that. So, I mean, Bruce, yeah, he had big losses, but he was a trailblazer in this industry. He created massive shareholder value for everyone. And I think he's doing something with Slang, actually, which is a great company, right?
Yes.
I mean, he's sharp as a tack.
There's another company called, I think, BTTR, which is in pet CBDs.
Right.
And then there's another one that's in psychedelics. So
Right.
apparently wants to get into mushrooms.
Right.
Yeah,
I think we're a little ways away from mushrooms. I think,
yeah.
Let's be a little bit more pragmatic about the whole mushroom thing. I think I've heard rumors that they're going to put it for medical use on the ballot in California and in Oregon, right? And we know that Denver's decriminalized, like South Africa's decriminalized cannabis. But I think I'd be a little careful about jumping into that wagon right now.
I have a question from Michael York. He says, what do you think of microdose hallucinogens?
That's an interesting question. Last night I was at a meeting at Soho House in West Hollywood, and that was actually with some really prominent California growers. Because now, prominent growers that we wouldn't have access to before, we have access to as a partner, given the tightness in the market, right? Which is very interesting and makes for very interesting products. But at the time, sitting next to me was one of my directors. You guys can look him up, Andrew Turman. And he's a film, he's a director of photography on movies and does all of that stuff. And he talks about microdosing acid. He does it from time to time when he's on set, and working. And he thinks it stimulates his brain, So people definitely in the creative area, and people who have what I call jobs with heads on a swivel are starting to use it. And I think Rolling Stone actually did a big feature article about a year and a half ago on it.
Wow. Very good. Very good. If there's anything you want investors to know before we say goodbye today about what you're doing or what you're working on, what would it be?
It's really first of all, I want to tell people that Oregon's doing well. And if you look at Q2 versus Q2 of last year, year over year, we're up even in Oregon. California is our focus. I'm spending my whole week here. I have to come to Toronto next week for a show, then I'm back here. And it's really our focus, and it's our focus to, try to leave the year, with substantially higher revenue in California that we started the year off at. And then the next focus in the medium to longer term for us is Lesotho. And there we think we can put plants in the ground, 1 hectare under forced air greenhouse in December, and harvest in May and actually realize revenue within a year of acquiring it.
That's impressive. Do you have any forecasts for revenue for 2020? Any estimates of what you guys?
No, we don't give a forecast for 2020. We're preparing one. 2019, we're forecasting, and you guys can come to our all you guys can come to our website and download our investor deck. We're forecasting 40 million for the year.
Wow, that's big.
And obviously we have an internal target that's higher, but that's 40 million USD for the year.
Wow, good for you. Congratulations on that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because last year we exited at 10. This year we'll exit at 40, right?
300% growth. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. And people say, oh, well, you entered California. But I go, but we had to take people like Jerry, who you guys all saw. We had to relocate people here. We had to, we've shuffled people between facilities. And we really haven't lost anyone senior. And so that's pretty cool.
I have a question. Any estimates for profitability?
And here I'll be really honest with you. The issue here is that we need to at least double our gross profit from our SBUs in order to break even before 280E tax. And in order to do that, we could probably increase it, I would say conservatively 33 to 50% organically. We're going to have to do something more strategic in order to return to profitability, because before we went public, when we were in Oregon in 2016, we were profitable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you've been profitable before. So,
yeah.
Definitely.
It's going to, listen, anyone I only know, maybe, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, maybe 2 to 3 companies, most of them private, who are profitable. And if any of these CEOs come on here and tell you that it is an easy and clear path to profitability, it could be the biggest ones from Canopy to the smallest ones to like a STEM. It is a difficult path to profitability for everyone because no one was engineered to be profitable. But now we're all focused on being profitable because we're not able to raise money like we used to.
And will the Safe Banking Act getting passed make it easier to raise money?
I don't think it'll make it easier to raise money, but I think it'll reduce the cost, your operating cost, for all the amount of hassle you have to handle cash. Government reporting forms, the IRS 8300, counts not tying, armored cars, it'll definitely reduce the cost of transacting business.
If anybody is interested in making an investment into your company, learning more about your company, or getting in contact with you, how would they go about doing that?
Investor relations at Halo Canna. Come to our website. I'm sure there's a lot of information on the web. Colin, who handles IR, will always punt questions to myself or Katie or Andreas or any of our senior managers. We're trying to be as accessible as we can.
And a lot of our investors have been asking about product reviews and reviewing products. So maybe as we start doing more of these, we can get into actually showing the products more and maybe testing them.
Yeah, sure. But for instance, Dab Tabs, there's a really good review done by Gizmondo.com.
Okay.
On that. And then I think our Exhale product, our distillate in California, was runner-up in last year's Dope Cup. But we don't do enough of that. And we're not, if there's one weakness about Halo, it's sort of our what I call our dressing up sometimes, putting more money into the website, more money into PR, those sorts of things is something, we can do a lot better, right?
Well, you know what? You're doing a great job, at least coming out here, getting in front of our community. We got about 78 people watching right now. Great. So congratulations on all your success. Thank you for being transparent, showing us your facilities. There's very few CEOs that have done that for us, so we really appreciate that. Thank you for bringing us into your facilities.
You're welcome. Because that's where I am every time you interview me.
And I like that. And so do the people. There's 81 people watching right now. They love the fact that, they're actually able to see the product, see the facilities, right, see the guys putting in the sweat equity. And, it's funny because a lot of people say, is it that difficult for these companies to get to profitability? Because it's been happening illegally for years. These guys must have been profitable.
Yeah, but they didn't pay taxes and they weren't public companies.
There you go. So that's the difference. Let's talk about that real quick before we go. There's the difference, right? You guys got to actually pay taxes, which is a big part, right, big chunk of your profit.
And remember, the taxes are much higher because we're taxed on a federal level at gross profit.
So you guys, so it's harder to stay profitable because you've got to also jump through hula hoops because in Canada, you got to deal with
IRS 280E.
Canada, you got to deal with Health Canada, and I've been to some facilities where it's you literally got to jump through hula hoops just to stay at a certain level of professionalism and to meet the standards of what Health Canada wants you to meet and the guidelines. For example, with edibles, I'm sure you're familiar with this, but the packaging, I don't think they're allowed to have more than 25 milligrams.
Right, and that varies state to state, right? I think in Oregon we have a product that's I think it's 1 gram.
Oh wow.
Wow, and that's allowed, but here in California, I don't know, but it's substantially lower. So yeah, it varies from state to state.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, an edibles kitchen, I was in one just up north a few hours ago. I mean, those are sterile environments, right? This is a distro hub, so this is rougher. You're not touching, you're not like making edibles and stuff. You're doing more assembly. But if you come to our lab, and anytime investors reach out all the time and say, I'm going to be in Palm Springs. I want to see your facility. I'm going to be in San Francisco. Can I come and see something? We're all open. You want to come to Oregon? It's harvest right now. We're always letting investors tour, no matter how big or how small. To us, an investor is an investor.
Oh, that's great. Well, you know what? This sector is crazy. There's so many ups and downs. Do you get to know everybody in the sector? Is there like
Yeah, you get to know people, but I've met Terry Booth, I've met Bruce Linton, definitely. Nav, who runs Supreme, is a buddy of mine. Uptar at Emerald's an old buddy of mine. Obviously the guys at Falcon we work with, guys at Iconic Farms. Yeah, no, definitely you get to know everyone. And I think it helps shareholders because, it's almost like counseling sessions when you talk to some of these other CEOs, or if Terry Booth talks to you, it's more like the word of Terry, right?
The word of God.
Listen, right?
Yeah.
But it's almost like a mechanism where we can all check one another, right? And we can all help one another because we don't really compete. We maybe compete for the same shareholder dollars, but we're all in different markets. But one thing I've noticed about marijuana is that even competitors cooperate, especially in California. I've noticed that a lot where, you would literally sell to someone and you're competing for shelf space with.
Well, I think you kind of got it. It's I always say everybody, we're cannabis enthusiasts, right? So there's more to this. It's not just like an industry. There's real enthusiasts here. This is legalization. This is deregulation. This is a revolution essentially, right? So it's
definitely.
So it's a tighter knit community. It's not like a lot of other like gold. It's not like oil and gas. You kind of want to help each other out because you're all fighting the same battle of legalization and decriminalization and prohibition.
And what's
right?
interesting is a lot of us invest in each other's companies as well.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
So this downturn that we've experienced, a lot of us are wrong in what we do, and we back other people in the space, and going to Lesotho, not being the first one in Africa, Nav at Supreme has been anything but a generous guy, right? With his experience, you can use my test labs,
That's fantastic.
It's like, because if he succeeds, we succeed because the market is so big, right? If he validates, it helps my stock because he's put such a big bet on Lesotho.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that everybody's working together because I think it's an exciting industry. It's an exciting sector. Like there is no other sector that has the news flow, whether it's good or bad. I mean, I always say it's kind of like must-see TV. I think one day this will be on Netflix because it's must-see TV. I mean, even whatever happened to CanTrust, I mean, you can't even make movies like that, So, I mean, it's crazy. So that is newsworthy. Whether it's good or bad, it's newsworthy. And eventually, and we live in a crazy world where eventually when stuff is bad, sometimes it makes more news and gets around than the good stuff, right? So, it's sad to see what happened with CanTrust, but they're still alive. What do you think about that? Like, I'd like to know your opinion on that because they're still alive. They're holding on.
Especially in California and in Oregon, not so much in Nevada. Stories like that you hear all the time, right? Stories of 1 meter buried in the ground and another meter up in 2010 because then the electric guy would know you're drawing so much power for your indoor grow that that you have a grow there, and then you could get arrested and your grow could be confiscated. So those stories are stories of lore in places like where I am now, which is the Emerald Triangle, right? So I am in the Emerald Triangle. So if you look around, these are the mountains where all the marijuana is grown, right? So you pop out here, right? You can see around here, the area up here, all these mountains, I wish I could show you guys, all through here, and you can hear the highway. This whole area is where marijuana is grown and has been.
That's great.
So it's it's a very it's right now you smell it in the air.
Wow.
Harvest here is the second week of October, and this area here was historically in North America the largest growing area. Arguably 75 to 90% of all marijuana consumed before legalization came up and down that highway you hear running, the 101. So it's this is where you have to be to get the biomass that we need to make distillate, because for every kilogram of distillate I need 100 kilograms of material.
Wow.
And the material only comes from here, right? That's not true. It comes from indoors, and it comes now from the Santa Barbara to Salinas Belt, and soon in the Central Valley. But historically, this is where all the biomass is.
So you said you were speaking to Valens Growworks. Is there something in the works there?
No, nothing in the works there. It was, I heard that they were doing doing volatile extraction, and the CEO hadn't heard about dab tabs. So I said, why don't I call him and tell him about it? And he said, that's really cool. He looked it up online, and he said, this is something I would like to pursue. I'll give you the name of the guy in my organization to pursue it with, and I'll connect him with my guy. And then he was off on an international trip. So I'll circle back with him maybe next week, because I've been so busy myself.
So as someone that's in the sector, do you have any idea what Health Canada is going to do to CannTrust? Like, because they can't sell.
No, I have no idea.
Like, what would you do if you couldn't sell product? You can't.
I know that in the U.S., basically your license would be pulled, right?
Yeah.
Immediately. That's like death sentence stuff. Your license is pulled, your building is locked, right? All your employees are let go, right? And you're done, right? I mean, they're just gonna, the state of California or the state of Oregon, right? They would, in the state of Nevada, with the gaming commission mentality,
oh yeah,
they'll take you down right away.
They want to make an example of you. I think they've actually been pretty lenient on CannTrust here in Canada when you think about it. I mean, they just got it suspended, so it wasn't completely pulled.
Well, maybe it's procedural where you have to suspend, because even if they come and shut me down in Oregon, I have the right to what's known as an Oregon administrative hearing. Okay. So I can then reopen my business and wait for the hearings and stuff. So of course they're procedural rules, but they would definitely come and shut you down.
Do you think that that's one of the reasons why we've had a downturn? Obviously, it doesn't help, but
I just think there's no good news. There's no catalyst.
Well,
now we have this vape crisis, right?
Yes.
Which I think is serious, but I think it, as I put in my press release yesterday, I think it has a lot to do with the devices as much as the bad product. And if someone buys a product from an unlicensed space, well, what do you expect, right? So, but I think, I really definitely think that that we just don't have a catalyst of any good news.
Now, I saw that you did do a interview and you made reference to the fact that you believe that edibles could be that catalyst. Do you still believe that?
I think that having edibles legally in Canada is really cool and is definitely a catalyst, okay? But then my head of sales, Chad Canner in California, looked at me last night and he said, dude, how much of our business is edibles? said about 10%, 12%. And he said to me, do you really think now that that is a catalyst? I said, yes, but listen, if you didn't have a vape cartridge, you didn't have a dab, right? You had an edible or you had to smoke weed, I think it's going to be 30 to 40% of the market until the other stuff comes up, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think it's going to be about, from what I've heard, I think it's going to be about 30% of the market.
Yeah, and that makes...
Because it's going to also go into beverages, right? Like cannabis-infused beverages is going to fall into that category as well.
Correct.
So that's going to create a whole bunch of opportunity there, right?
I actually, and the other thing is that, so up here, upstairs, they make actually these chocolates, which let me see if I can find them. No, they aren't, I can't find them. But chocolates are really good too.
Oh, phenomenal. Phenomenal.
And I've heard of kitchens going up at costs of like 20 to 40 million in California, right? Just big confectionery kitchens where cannabis companies can come and use them and make their own products.
I have a question about what do you think of WeedMaps?
It's a great service, right? It's a great service. It's that and Leafly are great services. If you want to find, it works, right? And it's a pity that others, but now Google Maps works and others. And I know WeedMaps also sells peripherals. I know they have an extract company,
They get into
I've
everything.
been to their offices once when I was at Everyone Does It, and it was a pretty cool place. It was in Irvine to talk to them, about peripheral stuff. But what's interesting is we ourselves don't advertise on Leafly or WeedMaps. To us, it's just expensive relative to the cost versus benefit at this point.
Are you ever planning to come out to Vancouver?
Sure. I'll come into your studio.
Yeah, I think we should definitely do that. I think we should definitely set up a time to do that. I think that'd be great.
Great. Yeah, I'll probably be up there in 2 weeks or so, 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll definitely set that up.
Visiting investors, potential investors, going to the Canadian cities, talking to the brokers.
I mean, this is where Canaccord is. This is where PI Financial is. This is where the mecca of cannabis is, CBDs. And we're working with quite a few companies like BevCanna. They're working with Next Leaf Solutions now. And these guys are all local here. So a lot of companies out here to work with.
I've heard good things about Next Leaf. I've heard some good things about Next Leaf for sure.
So thank you so much for your time again today. I know you're a busy guy. I'm going to let you go.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Always a pleasure. Let's do this again soon. Thank you for showing us around. And you're a great interview, and thank you for being so transparent. And I know the investors really appreciate it. Have yourself a great day. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This is Rich from Rich TV Live with the CEO of Halo Labs, Kiran Sidhu. Have a nice day.